The Blue Blood, a story by Slime Special 681, Chapter 4. Friday, March 8th, 2019, 9 p.m. 21 hours ago, the United States entered DEFCON 4. Unaccounted for spikes in background radiation were detected by an infrared satellite tasked with charting the projected trajectories of meteors of the annual meteor shower. The satellite was a newer model, and more specifically, it had been more recently serviced by ISS personnel and sported the latest sensors. Where it had failed to do so for the last 4 years, it now easily picked up on the unusual heat outputs of some of the meteors and related to NASA. NASA tasked 2 additional satellites to confirm the readings. They also began contacting their counterparts in the other spacefaring nations of the UN. After some satellite realignments, the others reported the same findings. Upon confirmation of the data, they tasked the ISS with direct observation and prepared to redirect Hubble. The ISS was able to note that the meteors in question appeared unusually uniform and rather metallic in nature. Hubble shortly after not only confirmed this report, but revealed that one of the objects in question had a structure similar in appearance to an engine. At this point, NORAD got involved. After much deliberation, the ISS was directed to aim concentrated radio waves at one of the objects. No one really knew what to do next when the small object fired its engines to course correct and directly face the ISS. After a moment to collect themselves, the space agents of the world relayed their findings to the UN. Following a brief and surprisingly calm debate, the shock and panic having robbed many of their desire to debate, it was decided to not inform the civilian population, lest mass panic erupted. After that, the next course of action was obvious to the UN. 11 hours ago, the world entered DEFCON 3. The fleet was now in position. The various capital ships and their escorts sat close to the planet, ready to screen any incoming fire and pick off any high-altitude fighters. The Hele-class orbital bombardment ship sat close behind them now, safe to glass their target in indiscriminate safety. The carriers stationed themselves the furthest back from the imminent battle, content to send in their shuttles if need be, their dedicated escorts when the time came. Everything was in line with the mission parameters, and yet Admiral Zepera was enraged as she spoke with the second princess over the view screen. "I know what I read. These reports said nothing about families being stationed at their military bases." "You are speaking to a daughter of the Empress. I will not warn you again." Zepera closed her eyes and took a deep breath before continuing. "These reports stated that there was a military presence of roughly 2.5 million soldiers. The reports stated that the natives have an estimated 13,000 nuclear weapons, that said weapons are controlled by 9 of 200 local tribes. That of those 13,000, 90% belong to just 2 of those tribes. That of those 13,000, only 30% are in a position of immediate response. The report stated that the tribes have no other counter capable of impeding the Imperium's advance, and that what counters they do have are exclusively amongst their high-end weaponry, relatively sparse." Zepera opened her eye to glance at the princess once more. "They certainly did not mention the absurdly high number of men in the armed forces, nor did they mention the families living with them on base." "I see no problem. We bring our families with us on internal deployment more often than not. This is their home planet. This was always to be expected." The second princess answered coldly. Zepera felt her heart sink at that, and it was hard not to let her gaze follow suit. "But the children," Zepera tried before being cut off. "As for the men, was it not obvious?" A species with a 50-50 gender split, whose males can go all night long, was bound to have a lot of men in the armed service. It goes without statement. We did not come this far to simply turn back and leave this system to others. It's not the same, and you know it. We may bring our families along, but we station them off base in the surrounding towns. A mere technicality. If it takes the lives of 20.5 million soldiers and their families to secure the Imperium's future prosperity, that's a bargain. Commence the assault as planned. Zepera was torn. The second princess wasn't wrong, but to Shivanti, duty and honor were one and the same. They had to be. And yet she found herself racking her brain for something, anything she could do. To strike without offering quarter first is wrong. This course of action is highly dishonorable, not only for you, but for the Imperium as a whole. Honor is found in the Imperium's continued march across the stars. You have your orders. Honor is found in how we achieve that march. Honestly, this masculine outburst is making me question your fitness to head this naval operation. Please, Princess Katria, I beg you to act in mercy and give them a chance to surrender. Zepera pleaded, leaving her chair and kneeling. Show your servants, no, show the entire galaxy the true meaning of Shivanti honor. Zepera didn't dare look up at the screen. She didn't have to. The princess's sadistically smug smile was already felt well enough. Very well, Admiral. Patch me through. I have a message for these natives. Zepera looked up at her crew, already rushing to accomplish the task before the princess could reconsider. Setting up the required translation subroutines, coordinating with the rest of the fleet, and linking into Earth satellites took nearly 3.5 minutes. After that, sending the message exclusively to the UN and its representative governments took all but 1 minute. Representatives of Earth, I am Princess Katria, second princess of the Shivanti Imperium, daughter of Marquess Nermal Galmor and Her Majesty the Empress. I am here to inform you that a state of war currently exists between your people and the Imperium. You have 3 hours to capitulate. Prince Dura was running through the Exos checklist with a young mechanic. He knew her by her face and work ethic. She was one of the best, if not the best, mechanic in the Golden Glaive Support Company. A fact he appreciated doubly so, considering that she was the only exo mechanic the Empress had allowed him to bring. Her name had never seemed important before this expedition, though. Now, though, with the lives of his entire company exclusively in her hands, it seemed very important. His Omnipad dinged with a notification. To all command staff, the operation has been postponed for 3 hours, pending negotiation with the native leadership. I have been meaning to thank you for a while. Dura called to her from the cockpit. For what, my prince? She asked, looking up from her Omnipad. Stigio 7 mostly, but all of this as well, he said, motioning to the row of gold-plated exos. You do great work. Thank you, my prince, she said, quickly looking back down as a blush flooded to her cheeks. I never caught your name, by the way. That's because I never gave it, my prince. I'm Vixa Sarno. All good up here, Dura said, checking off the last item of his list. Same here. Dura waited for her to clear before lowering the exo to the ground and climbing out. Well, Vixa, it seems my sister has grown some form of conscience over the last few days. Vixa gave him a head tilt. Apparently, we have 3 hours to kill while she negotiates with them. That is out of character from what I know of the woman's past. Yeah. Dura said, trying not to think too hard about what kind of person his second sister was. Do you think they will actually accept terms? They're essentially pink tuskless Shivanti, so maybe? I can't imagine them not wanting to be part of the Imperium. Knowing my sister, it's probably along the lines of, "Surrender primitives, that is all," he said, putting on his best Empress voice. Stop it, she said, playfully shaking his arm. She then froze in horror and dropped to the ground in prostration. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I... Raise your head and look me in the eyes. She complied, but kept her palms to the ground. She slowly raised her gaze to meet his. His gaze wasn't one of scorn, or really one of pity, but one of understanding. I am not my sisters, or even my brother. When I'm alone with my people, I am Dura, not Prince Dura, not some pissy male, just Dura, he said firmly before extending his right hand to her. She started to reach for it, only to withdraw slightly before touching him. I hate a man. What kind of woman does that? Look, I've been through the basics for the Death Heads, Interior, and Golden Glaives. That's not to mention the numerous assassination attempts on myself and the royal family. If I couldn't take a love tap, I'd be dead, he stated as he grabbed her hand and pulled her up with a startling amount of force. Vixa wasn't sure what to make of him, or the fact that he hadn't let go of her hand yet, so she did the only logical thing she could think of. What happens now? We still have 3 hours to kill. The rest of the company is getting plastered in the shuttles on the side of the hangar. Let's get some drinks, he said, pulling her with him as he started heading that way. But the upcoming mission, you can't be drunk while piloting? I'll be fine. I'm not some lightweight, and if I'm being perfectly honest, if I do end up having to pacify a planet, I could use a drink or two.